Welcome to a More Beautiful World podcast with Susyn Renee, a place for those of us with the desire to expand our consciousness, tap into higher vibrations of love, and to connect into a community where together we can make the world a more beautiful place. I'm so eager to share with you what I've learned on my journey in discovering how we're all connected and how what we do for one, we do for us all. Here, I'll be sharing my own experiences, knowledge, and expertise for how you can heal, transform, and ascend your being so that together we can create the more beautiful world we all know is possible. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of A More Beautiful World. Today, we are talking about why it's time to let go of fear. And of course, I'm going to be talking about how to do it. All right. How do we let go of fear? Specifically today in this episode, I'm going to dive into what you can do to move out of fear and move out of that lower vibration of fear so you can heal and you can empower your spiritual awakening journey and ultimately transform your life. So I'll be covering key practices to make that happen. We'll be talking about things like mindfulness and self-compassion and examining your belief systems. I'll also be diving in today to some of the more philosophical sides of this conversation in letting go of fear. And I'll be sharing some wisdom on why this is such important work right now. You know, as our planet's vibration is rising and the energy of the collective is rising, it is supporting you in this process. So, divine timing for letting go of fear. If you are feeling like it's time to finally let go of the old ways of being and the old stories you've been telling, and you're ready and willing to empower your growth, healing, and transformation, then this episode is going to be for you. Exciting stuff. So I want to first set the stage for you because a big component of what is happening right now is that our planet is transitioning. There is an ascension process happening in the universe, in Mother Earth. Our planet is awakening. There is a great awakening and ascension process. And this is a time where the vibrations of fear and guilt and shame and judgment, all of that is being purged from the collective, which is why in so many ways we feel these emotions so intensely right now. If you look at what's happening in the world and what's happening on the planet right now, there is so much fear and judgment and guilt, out there. It's so prevalent. It's so in our faces. And it's because in order for it to be cleared, it first has to come to light. So in order for us to clear it, right, and to let go and to awaken and be in this transition and allow this transition to happen in the spiritual awakening that's going on right now, it begins with you. And you need to be willing to show up and do the work. And I want you to know and to trust. And I will hold this knowing and trust for you if you cannot yet access it yourself. You are so supported right now. You are so supported in the collective energy, in the universe. And if you can really sink into the trust and the knowing of that, then you will really be able to feel this. You'll be able to move through letting go of the fear. And that's part of what we'll talk about today. So in letting go of your fears and this beautiful time in the collective that's supporting you on this journey, letting go of your fears is also about letting go of the stories and the self-limiting beliefs that you've been holding on to. And as we do that, it offers so much for your healing and your transformation and your spiritual awakening. And that's, again, what we're really going to dig into today, is how to make that happen. So I want to, as I usually do, begin with a bit of self-reflection. And I think this is a very key piece to set the stage for letting go of fear. And I want you to ask yourself, do you want to survive and just survive in your life? Or do you want to be alive? Do you want to experience all that there is to be human? Or do you simply want to just survive? This is a fundamental question to ask yourself, because it goes back to, do you want to live in the story of separation or the story of interbeing? The story of separation is in that survival mode. The story of interbeing is in the alive. It's in thriving. And if you want some more perspective on, the story of separation versus the story of interbeing, go back to my first episode of this podcast and listen to the premises and the perspectives of that if you haven't already. But in short, this is very key and fundamental in letting go of our fears, because the story of interbeing is recognizing the fact that we are all connected. It's accepting the story that what you do for yourself, you do for us all. And the story of interbeing is where you recognize yourself as love, and you see your love in the love of others, the love you have for others, the love you receive from others. You see yourself as love, as part of the great love of the collective. We are all love. And that story of interbeing is about love. It's about the connection that we all share. And as you show up as love, and as you tap into the energy of love, you don't feel separate. You don't buy into that story of separation that says you're disconnected from the love. And again, this is love. It's love for yourself. It's love for the collective. This is a key piece to your transformation. Because if we get down to it, I truly believe the opposite of fear is love. So how do you let go of fear? You move into a place of love. And love, I think, in so many ways is indescribable. There are a lot of aspects of love, things like acceptance and trust and faith and respect, right? But all of those words, I think, do boil up to that greatest energy. And that greatest energy is love. And love will always prevail. So with that, how do you transmute the fear into love, right? How do you make that shift from this story of separation into the story of interbeing by letting go of fear? I want to sink in and go through some practical, steps, and give you some practical advice on how to make that happen, which we will. But I want to put out a little disclaimer, or another just reflection point for you, because doing this work, going on a spiritual awakening journey, and integrating your spiritual awakening into your life, it takes courage, it takes bravery, and it takes having a will that is stronger, in wanting to move forward than it is to stay in your comfort zone. Letting go of fear itself can be scary. We're afraid of letting go of fear, which is kind of this weird conundrum there. But it's because, letting go of our fears and making changes, it can be difficult. Change isn't always easy. It can be very challenging at times. But I want you to kind of think of letting go of this fear and moving into the space of love, and into this healing, this transformation, this spiritual awakening. I want you to think of it as if you're birthing a new life for yourself, and if you think of it like the birthing process of a human, if if you want to grow a human and take it from a fetus, in the womb where it is all comfortable and cozy and all your nourishment is provided for, you can think about that visual as where you're at right now. You are comfortable, you're cozy, even if you don't love where you're at, you could probably agree that even with your fear and what you're afraid of, the reason you haven't moved past is because right now you feel comfortable and cozy. So if you want to go from that fetus in the womb with those feelings and you want to go out into a new world, what has to happen? You have to go through the birth canal, right? You've got to go through this transformation process where you're going to be squeezed and there's going to be pain and there's going to be, some scary moments. And in that, you have to recognize you're not separate from your mother, right? You're not separate from the divine. You have to, have the faith and the trust that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you can connect into that courage and you can see that similarity there, that letting go of this fear is this birthing process into this new world, right? Into this story of interbeing, into this story of love. If you can connect into that, even just a piece of that knowing, you will find success. And as you do that, as you begin to reflect and connect into that for yourself, I'm going to share some practices that you can start to incorporate so you can shed the fear and return to the love of all you are. And you can start to tell the story of interbeing and accept that as your story. So let's dive into the practical pieces of how to let go of fear. Okay. The first step in the process is mindfulness and becoming mindful. And I think mindfulness is thrown around a lot out there, but if you've been listening to my podcast for a while or you're just getting started and checking out some episodes, I talk about expanding your self-awareness a lot. It's woven through a lot of my episodes. And that's because if we really want to heal and transform and awaken, we have to have awareness around where we are right now. So when it comes to fear and letting go of fear, we have to become aware of the fear. We have to understand where it shows up and when it shows up. And as we put this layer of being mindful on the fear, we actually are becoming aware of our old subconscious patterns that are showing up. And again, I'm going to tell you, there is no healing of this. There is no letting go of fear without the awareness. Like an addict, who cannot heal if they are still in denial, which honestly, you could say that holding on to our fears is an addiction. There is some addiction nature in holding on to our subconscious patterns and holding on to fears. So if we look at this like an addiction, we cannot heal it. We cannot let go of the fear until we have awareness around the fear. And once there is awareness, that shifts you into acceptance. Let's not get too far ahead of myself here because I'm going to move into talking about acceptance in a little bit. But you cannot accept what you are not aware of, which is why the mindfulness and the awareness is the first step. Because as we become more mindful, as we have more awareness around what the fear is, that is where we can shed light on it. And shining light on the pieces of you that need healing, shining that awareness on it is the first step in letting go of the fear. We have to look at it, understand it, recognize it, be aware of it. So let's take this into a quick example. Let's say you're in deep fear of letting go of a relationship and you're, working on building the awareness around it and being mindful of this fear. So as you are, becoming more aware of the situation, you could start to unravel some things in this exploration. You could realize the real fear isn't in letting go of the relationship. It's you're afraid of being alone. You could be afraid that, this would make you unlovable, or this means that you're unlovable. It could mean you're afraid of failure, and seeing, the loss of the relationship as a failure. It could mean you're afraid of change in routine, right? Going back to that cozy, comfortable stage, maybe you're afraid of change. You're afraid of the unknown after the relationship ends, right? And I can go on because, again, I think there's a lot that goes into, singular fears that we can really explore. And what I'm getting across right now and saying is that you're actually not afraid of letting go of the relationship. You're afraid of the change, and you're afraid of the aftermath of that. And some of these subconscious belief patterns that you've been holding on to, and you're afraid of those being proven true, right? And so we're going to talk about that more in a second. But again, if you think of yourself as an addict to fear, right? If we are addicted to our fears, you are someone who has become unconsciously, addicted to the fear. And again, it cannot be healed without you bringing light onto it, bringing the awareness onto it, seeing the totality of it, and really getting down to some of the true roots of what that fear is. So as you're becoming mindful of the fear, there are a lot of ways you can explore this. And, a lot of times it can be as simple as just putting some thought and contemplation around it, catching the thought in the moment. Hey, I'm afraid right now. I'm afraid of doing this. I'm afraid of saying this, and just exploring that in your own mind. You can also further that by taking it into journaling or meditation, or doing some guided meditations around releasing fear, being in therapy or counseling, or working with a coach like myself. And sometimes working with someone, you can get better reflection, in your fear. But just becoming aware of the thought patterns as they show up is the beginning, because you have to have this awareness of the fear and its totality in order to move on and to let it go. So step one, all about awareness. So as we move into step two in the process of letting go of our fears is having compassion for yourself. So what is self-compassion? It is accepting where you are at. It is loving yourself where you are right now. It is being warm and kind and understanding to yourself. It's being your own best friend. And I know we all are our own worst critics. And one of the ways to help us navigate the spiritual awakening journey, because it is a lot, fear in itself is a lot to work with. You have to be able to come back to love yourself through the process. I've got several episodes on, self-love and self-acceptance, and they're in these episodes, in my episode repertoire for a reason, because it is critical to the journey. And it's an absolutely essential piece to letting go of fear, because once you understand all the fears and you have all this mindfulness and awareness for yourself, the last thing you want to do is start beating yourself up about it. Okay. So as you have the awareness around the fears, then you move into self-compassion, into loving yourself through it. Accept yourself for where you are right now. Love yourself for where you are right now. Heck, even love yourself for being willing to expand your awareness on what your fears are, right? And I think there's a concept here where we bring in that trust, trust in the divine, and trust that there is this duality in life, right? And in being alive, there's going to be ebbs and flows, and have grace for yourself, and again, have this deep self-acceptance. So I like to think of this, as kind of becoming your own best friend. As I mentioned, I think we're all our own worst critic. And when fear shows up, especially if there's a fear that's holding us back from something, we tend to get really into this negative self talk space, and this internal critic comes out even louder. So, one way to transition into being more compassionate for yourself is think of someone who loves you dearly, and bring them into your heart. This could be a dear friend, best friend. It could be a loving parent, a sibling who you are really close to. And hey, maybe it's even your dog or your cat or a hamster, whatever. There is a lot of love out there. So it can be any being, okay? But think of someone who just loves you so much, and maybe you have so much love for them too. But if you can, in the moments of recognizing that fear showing up, and when you're feeling into that, to turn it into a moment of compassion for yourself. If it is difficult for you, I want you to imagine you're being surrounded by the ones you love. So maybe it's that friend giving you a hug, or, your parent telling you that they love you. It could be your cat sitting on your lap. Okay, whatever it is, I think if we cannot easily give to ourselves, transitioning into becoming more self-compassionate by thinking about being surrounded by the people who love you, that in itself is a compassionate move and will start to pave the way for you to show up that way for yourself. And however you get there, if you can already get there, with self-love and self-compassion and tell yourself kind things and be warm to yourself, or if you have to put the perspective of surrounding yourself by people that you receive love from, whatever it is, you do have to be open to receive the love in these moments. Compassion is not just about love and giving love, it's about receiving the love. So if you can give it to yourself, or pretend there's a loved one giving it to you, you still need to be open to receive it. And receiving that compassion is a big key in the self-compassion space. So with the self-compassion, again, you need to, in releasing this fear, be able to accept where you are and know that you are amazing and you are love and you are so worthy of love, and be able to give that and receive that from yourself. So step 3 in the process is going to be questioning the story and the narrative that you've been telling. And I do have an entire episode on that concept as well, in rewriting your story, but it is a big, powerful step in letting go of fear. So if you haven't listened to that episode, maybe head over there next. But I want to include a brief summary here because it is so powerful in getting us into the space of being able to let go of our fear and to move through it. So the key piece to this practice is being able to ask yourself, what do I know to be true? What do I know to be true right now? Because oftentimes these subconscious patterns that we're holding on to and the fear that is showing up, they're based on old belief systems. They're based on old stories. They're based on lies that we've accepted, from ourselves or from society or from our parents or, from religion, wherever they have come from. If you can ask yourself, what do I really know to be true? And you can unwind some of that story that you've been telling yourself. You can strip it down to real truth. So let's go back to that example of, maybe letting go of a relationship and you have this fear. Maybe you've become aware of the fact that you have this deep fear of being alone. And maybe even a deep fear of failure along with it. Once you can love yourself and understand and have compassion for that, then you ask yourself, what do I really know to be true? And again, as I encouraged you in the beginning of this episode, if you can sink into the trust and the knowing in this story of interbeing, that we are all connected and we are all love, then you will realize you are never alone. And there's nothing to be afraid of there, because you will always be connected. And there are always people and beings, to connect with. And maybe if it's a fear of failure, if you can connect into the truth that this is your journey and it's only a failure if you don't learn from it, right? And if you can start to see the blessings and the lessons, and look with a non-judgmental lens on what do I know to be true, you can unwind the story that you've been telling yourself. You can unwind these subconscious belief patterns and strip it down to the real truth. So again, I have an entire episode on rewriting the story, but we need to shed light on the fear if we want to be able to let it go. And that question and following that question through to completion, it might take a bit of journaling. It might take, several minutes, several hours, several weeks, several times coming back to it to really navigate what you know to be true. But it will help you unwind and let go of the fear. So those are my practical steps for you. I want to just quick review them and remind you, it does begin with being mindful and cultivating awareness on the fear. And then it moves into this compassion and self-compassion and connecting really deeply into love and into acceptance. And then you need to dig and you need to strip it down and ask yourself, what do I really know to be true? And I know you can do that. And I know it's scary. And I know it's hard and it's difficult. And let's be honest, it can be really fucking painful. But I also know that you have the courage and you have the bravery within you to walk this path. You would not be here listening to this if you were not on your journey. These words, these practices are finding you in divine timing on your spiritual journey. And I believe your soul chose to reincarnate here on this earth during this time, in this unprecedented time on our planet for a reason. And those are the pieces of the trust and faith I hope you can connect into. I will be holding that vision for you to connect into that, because they will carry you through in letting go of the fear. And I want to just kind of finish up this episode reminding you that there is so much joy and it is such a blessing to be alive. And we don't want to survive. We don't want to go through our life just surviving. You want to live. You want to feel. You want to be witness to the ebbs and flows and the contrast to all that there is to being human. Be alive and experience that. And I do trust in time that you can connect deeply into that hope and that trust that everything is unfolding in perfection. And I hope in those moments that you do connect into that, you get goosebumps of what your future potential is and what the potential is not only for yourself, but for the world. And as you go through this process of letting go of fear, and even greater, as you go through your spiritual awakening process, you will have more and more and more of these moments where you feel connected into this trust and you get those goosebumps about your future potential. You feel what that feels like. And those are the moments that are going to keep you moving forward. So as you go through the process, enjoy that hope of the unknown. Enjoy the eagerness that it brings to see yourself letting go of the fears and changing your life and transforming your being and to awakening to your spiritual self and to integrating your body, mind, and spirit. Because as you sink into that enjoyment and that eagerness, things are going to quicken. And they're going to quicken within you. And all of a sudden, the new life is going to start unfolding that you've created. And this is your reminder to let go of that fear and any remaining fears, and to let go of any guilt and judgments and resentments, because that resets your potential for life and for being alive. The universe is supporting you right now, my dear one, because we are evolving. Consciousness is rising. The vibration of the planet is rising, and the world is ready for you to awaken with it. It's not only ready, it is calling you. And again, if this podcast is finding you, it is calling you. There is a divine reason that you are listening to this right now. So it needs you. The world needs you. We all need you to shed your fears, to raise your vibration, and to continue to get better as you're on your spiritual awakening journey, so that we can all make this the more beautiful world that we all know is possible. All right, that is all for today. Mwah. Until next time, much love to you all, tribe. Hey, tribe, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this podcast, make sure to like the video below and then click subscribe so you never miss an episode. And remember, I've got lots of free resources available to you to support your healing, transformation, and ascension, so you can help in making this a more beautiful world for us all. Make sure you check them out in the description below. Thanks again for tuning in, tribe. And until next time, much love to you all.